Like I said in the Black Knight video, the 4Kids era of Sonic videos are not quite over and done with. The main portion is, but now we're on to the impressive roster of spin-offs. We're going to start our trek through the spin-offs with the Nintendo DS. Released in 2004, the DS was the first Nintendo handheld to not be part of the Game Boy lineup, at least the only one since the original debuted in 1989. Unless you count the Virtual Boy, I guess, but it has boy in the name, so I don't know. Nintendo must have been set for life in the mid to late 2000s. I mean, the GBA was successful, but the GameCube was not. But for the latter half of the decade, they had the DS and the Wii at the same time, both of which were money printers. I obviously had a DS back in the day, something I wanted because my sister had one. I remember the day she got that DS too. We were just starting the Return of the Jedi levels and LEGO Star Wars 2 for the PS2, but we had to stop because it was time to get her DS. I remember this because no kid likes being brought along to watch the sibling get cool new stuff. I don't have my old DS anymore, but I still hold on to hers. Could you tell with the pink color scheme and floral decals? It still works too. One of my favorite things in the DS was the backwards compatibility it had with the Game Boy Advance, which meant that Sonic Advance 3 could now be played in full color and quality. But of course, Sonic the Hedgehog had a crap ton of games on the DS as well, the first of which was released in 2005, Sonic Rush, developed by Dimps. Sonic Rush seems to be a pretty popular entry in the series. Not 3 and Knuckles popular, but amongst Dimps' roster, this is pretty high on the list of favorites. Although I think the only Dimps game that most people agree was good was the first Advance. But anyway, looking back at my experience with the Sonic Rush series, I played a lot of Rush Adventure back in the day, but I didn't play as much of the first game, but have played all the games in today's video, Sonic Rush Adventure, and Sonic Colors to completion a couple times over the years. But going into this video, it has been a long time. With Sonic Advance 3 being a game I play a couple times a year, Advance 1 being something I can revisit every now and again, and Sonic Advance 2 just being kind of okay, I guess. How will the Rush series stack up to those? To start with what pops immediately, it would be aesthetic. Sonic Rush focuses on 2 characters, Sonic and the newly introduced Blaze the Cat. Blue and purple with white in between them. Blue, white, and purple is what everything related to this game is clad in. The box art, the wallpapers, the menus, it looks really slick. Propping up the aesthetic would be the soundtrack. This soundtrack was done by Hideki Naganuma of Jet Set Radio fame. What stands out about his style is the usage of voice samples in the music that I don't think many other Sonic games do. The compositions of Right There, Right On, or Back to Back might not be out of the ordinary for this series, but the addition of the voice samples really helps it stand out. Each act doesn't get a theme like Sonic 3 and the Advance games did, but each stage does get a theme variant for when you play Blaze's campaign. Some of these tracks adding extra instruments to the background like the theme of Huge Crisis or Mirage Road, and then a stage like Water Palace will remix the voice samples, making every stage's theme worth giving a second listen to. The soundtrack album, Sonic Rush Original Groove Rush, also comes with uncompressed versions of a lot of the songs, allowing us to hear great tracks like What You Need and Wrapped in Black in full quality. Don't like Sonic's version of Huge Crisis, though. It sounds like ear poison. So we have the aesthetic, the art direction, and the soundtrack, and those are basically my favorite things about Rush, not gonna lie. The in-game graphics use these models, and I must say I do wish they stuck with the 2D aesthetic from the Advance games. I get they wanted to take advantage of the DS's power to produce 3D characters over sprites, but I just thought that as far as a 2D handheld game was concerned, the Advance games brought the artwork to life in a way these models never could. The models just look kinda dated, but that's not nearly as bad as the sound effects, which were dated out of the box. I couldn't tell you why, but for these 3 games, the quality of the sound effects is terrible. Like they came from a Game Gear or something. When getting into the game proper, you have 2 campaigns, Sonic's and Blaze's. The Blaze campaign is not unlocked until you've beaten the first zone as Sonic. This not being like multiple campaigns in Advance 1 and 2, it's more like Adventure 1 with a completely remixed stage order as the levels revolve around the story. Not a bad idea, but as a side note, the story in this game is awful. I won't toss a chair over it or anything, but the dialogue is wooden and awkward for the entire game as the cutscenes preach endlessly about the values of friendship, and by that we mean let Sonic do everything. Because he's a fucking badass. I mean, just look at him. It does make for an entertaining parody video, though. The point is that Blaze is a loner and learns that friends are a good thing. She's a pretty good character, even if the story's trite. She's a princess from another dimension with fire powers that has the responsibility of guarding the Soul Emeralds, the equivalent to the Chaos Emeralds in her dimension. The 2 dimensions are collapsing in on one another because the Chaos Emeralds and the Soul Emeralds can't coexist. The Emeralds were brought over by Blaze's nemesis, Dr. Eggman Nega, who's obviously teaming up with Dr. Eggman. From a design standpoint, Blaze works really well as a Sonic rival. I mean, she isn't an enemy of Sonic. In fact, she's basically an alternate dimension counterpart of him. So she stands out because they aren't meant to be enemies per se, but contrasting nonetheless. But with Eggman Nega, they just gave up and recolored Eggman and called it a day, and then both have like the same personality in the game anyway. I really laughed at the cutscene where Sonic finds out he's fighting Eggman Nega. Like, the game plays a fucking sound effect when he reveals his name as Eggman Nega. Like, oh my god, this changes everything! Even if not really. The story isn't all bad. I mean, Blaze and Cream make for a cute team, and Blaze learning from her how to make friends is a nice one-off story. It's just the execution is kind of dull and predictable. Especially when Sonic and Blaze, for like no reason, start fighting. But I thought it was kind of funny how Cream is sitting there on the bottom screen rooting for Sonic to get his ass kicked. But that's enough of that, let's get into the game. This being a DS game, the devs utilized the two-screen dynamic by having Sonic and Blaze run in between the two screens, which is a pretty cool gimmick. Sometimes my ability to perceive what's going on is diminished by that, but it is a cool gimmick that lends itself to more vertical stages. Of course, the downside is I'm just going to leave both views on the screen at all times, because I'm too lazy to do it like this, where I change the alignment of the clip whenever the character goes to a different screen. Normally, when I do DS games, I just crop onto the gameplay screen like in, say, Mega Man ZX, but that's not going to work for this video, so here we are. I designed a border specifically for this game, but I just decided to keep my regular one for consistency's sake. Sonic Rush was the first game to introduce the boost gameplay, probably being inspired by the boost mode from Sonic Advance 2 and 3, just making that a player-activated ability. How it works is that you must fill your boost gauge by attacking enemies and most importantly, doing tricks in midair. When you launch from a spring or wherever, you can press a button to keep doing tricks in midair, and the more you do, the more points you get, but you can also press a button to do a trick finisher that grants you more boost refill. Blaze having a much easier time getting around because she can do this mega jump from midair with this, while Sonic can't. She can also hover for short distances, which is another thing that Sonic cannot do. The main gimmick of the game being that you press the Y button to boost forward, and it works pretty much exactly how it would 3 years later in Sonic Unleashed as you plow through enemies and obstacles. But upon playing this game again, I just don't feel like the boost gameplay was particularly fun in a 2D side-scroller. In Sonic Unleashed, what I thought was great about the boost gameplay was how you'd get to play at really high speeds, but the level design was also really demanding of its players because you'd have to react to obstacles with split-second timing. Something I think only a 3D game could really make fun. When finishing Sonic Rush for the first time, and especially the second time as Blaze, I just thought Rush was either really boring or just kind of frustrating. At the end of the day, I think Rush is a decent game, like I'd give it a B grade or so. I just didn't enjoy myself playing it. For me, segments of just boosting forward didn't really provide much in the way of thrill, it just kind of felt like the game was playing itself. Otherwise, I was getting tripped up by the level design. Huge Crisis and Altitude Limit both just being a total chore to play because the former loves crusher blocks and pits you couldn't anticipate, and the latter is suspended over this giant bottomless pit and it's really difficult to see where you're going to land, and that shit just makes me really mad when I die for reasons that I don't feel like are my fault. Or when it's just the developers making something instant death for no reason. Come to think of it, most of the levels have unfair death pits as early as Water Palace, but as I was saying, there's this part of Dead Zone where you need to launch yourself forward on a rocket and then backwards. If you fail, have an instant kill laser grid. Like, why? Why make it like that? With the screen space in the DS, I also felt like I could not really see what was coming when it came to enemy placement, what was above or below me. Doesn't help that this game brings the 2D series back to Advance 2 logic. If you get a game over, you have to do the whole zone again. When Advance 3 changed it to make it so you only have to replay that act. I never got a game over in Rush anyway, but RetroArch did crash once in each of my playthroughs, so I had to replay the zone upon restarting. Speaking of Advance 3, I kinda figured I'd bring that game up a couple times in this video. I mean, it's one of my favorite Sonic games, and Rush is pretty much the sequel, so on that ground, it's pretty natural. A lot of people just flat out don't like that game for the kinds of dumb bullshit it pulls on the player. What I kind of found odd is why Rush is as popular as it is when I feel like the leading cause of death in Advance 3 and Rush is the same sort of thing. Now, I guess that goes for the inverse since I didn't enjoy this game but loved that one, but to be fair, I don't really hate Rush or anything, I just didn't enjoy playing it. But the reasons I'd still go as far as to give it a B would be because of the fact that it's a pretty stylish game overall with the tricks and the grind rails. It really did try injecting that adventure era energy into it, but it just didn't land for me when it came to the gameplay. When the game isn't being kind of annoying, it's just getting a little dull. I already mentioned that boosting forward doesn't really do it for me, but the epitome of dull 2D Sonic level design comes in Mirage Road, where the player repeatedly has to fight through these combat rooms. Something people already didn't like in Heroes, Shadow, and 06, but here I think it's especially bad. I mean, you just have to boost forward and back and everything dies. This level also has these moments. Like, what is going on? Like, nothing is happening. I'm just sitting here dodging rocks, I guess. When you play Night Carnival, you might actually be expecting the enemy room thing to be gone, but then it comes back with a vengeance in Huge Crisis, where they have enemy rooms over pits too, and like, sheesh, did they not think these levels were fun enough and needed to spice it up? Were they trying to tank lives from the pits and blocks? I have no idea. To give the game some credit, the special stage system has been massively improved. I'd say special stages were the most infamous aspect of the Advanced trilogy. Getting to them in Advance 1 wasn't the worst thing in the world, but the stages had really bad depth perception. Advance 2 had the miserable coin collection side quest in every stage required to play its lame special stages. Advance 3 had the really enjoyable Chow collection quest and actually fun special stages, and I'm letting my bias show again, aren't I? Well, anyway, even if I liked how Advance 3 did it, the simplicity of Rush 1's method is definitely preferred. You'll find these spinny things, you have to boost on them. Have enough boost gauge built up and you'll be warped to the special stage. This time use the stylus on the bottom screen to control Sonic through the half-pipe structure from Sonic 2. You know, collect rings while dodging obstacles for a set amount of rounds and the emerald is yours. With each one getting harder than the last. Getting into special stages is frustration-free, and the stages offer a reasonable challenge as the control is responsive and the obstacles are never too hard to see coming. So with that, fully completing Sonic Rush is pretty accessible to players. You also don't have to collect the Soul Emeralds, as these are given to Blaze by beating boss fights. You know, I didn't even intend for that segue to be so good. Now, having said that, boss battles in Sonic Rush are full stop some of the worst bosses I've played in a Sonic game. The Advanced trilogy had all different approaches to boss battles, the first game relying on the classic 8 hits to beat Eggman and his new mech structure. Advance 2 had the player automatically running forward as you dodge the obstacles, and Advance 3 gave each boss a unique pattern that had to be tackled in a new way. Here in Rush, it should be as simple as 8 hits to win, but this game committed the cardinal sin of boss battles. Don't just make the player stand around for ages waiting for the ability to hit the thing, dodging predictable attacks. In the first boss, you have to wait for it to slam on the ground and jump on its head, but the time in between each ground pound is an eternity. The bosses of Huge Crisis and Altitude Limit take so long because you just can't hit it, making each boss go on for over 2 minutes each time. My final time in the Altitude Limit boss was 2 minutes and 42 seconds, but with each of my deaths starting you back at the beginning, I spent like 10 minutes on this. If you want to make the boss fights last less time, you have to set the game mode to easy, and then the bosses take 6 hits instead of 8. This game also starting that weird thing where getting hit over and over makes your rings scatter farther. I guess that increases the challenge of the bosses, but damn, that's the last thing you'd want in bosses as obnoxious as these ones. The one in Night Carnival is easily the best because hitting it once drops a moving platform for you to jump on and get a second hit. You need to time your jumps correctly to get that second hit in, and this gives you a decision to make on the fly, which is something I like, and it's something that rest of the bosses don't offer. After you beat the 7th zone, you have to face a final boss and get to see each character's ending, but if you collect all 7 emeralds, you unlock the last boss where you play a Super Sonic and Burning Blaze against the 2 doctors. The final boss music probably be my favorite track in the game. Just listen to it. As for the boss itself, I suppose it's one of the better ones, but it was still pretty cumbersome. As Super Sonic, you have to reflect the mech's attacks back at it, but it attacks you once it stops moving, making it really hard to line yourself up to hit it. Burning Blaze's segments being much easier as you need to just blast it with fire. Do that enough times and you win, ending with the dimensions returning to normal. In the credits, we get a bit of an epilogue to the story, and I've always liked Sonic cheering Cream up over Blaze going back to her dimension. I don't know, I just think that's what Sonic's all about, so you like to see it. But besides that, I really don't have much else to say about this game. It's okay. Sonic Rush just didn't do it for me. But the game has a lot of style, great aesthetic, and music, so I'll always appreciate that about it. The mechanics work pretty well and laid the groundwork for the gameplay in Sonic Unleashed, but the level design just killed the appeal for me. The things I don't like about this game certainly don't make it terrible or bad, I just thought it was okay. As I've said twice before, it averages out to a B for me. But the game reviewed and sold really well, and for the game released the same day as Shadow the Hedgehog, that certainly must have been good for Sega at least. 2 years later, we got the sequel, Sonic Rush Adventure, also on the DS. For this game, I really wasn't sure what I was going to say about it. I mean, I mentioned before that I played this a lot as a kid, and thinking about it now, I remember that this game had a Flash game on the old Sega website, which is how I first heard of it. Splash Dash just did a video on the old Sonic Flash games, and I was like this for the whole video. Like, I played these stupid-ass games. Needless to say, I have nostalgia for this one, but when I replayed all the handheld Sonic games in 2014 or so, I just didn't like this one that much. Having not played it since, and after 1 hour of playing it, I could already tell you why I don't like it. To start with what I do like, there's the soundtrack. While lacking the unique qualities from the first Rush OST, this soundtrack by series veteran Tomoya Ohtani and others is still really good. Machine Labyrinth, Blizzard Peaks, Pirate Island, the boss theme, all really good tracks. While we're on the positives list, I think the gameplay staying consistent with the first Rush game was a good idea, as the Advanced trilogy decided to go in a new direction with each game. Because of staying consistent, Rush Adventure is a game players of the first game can easily pick up and play while enjoying the quality of life improvements that are in the game. Doing tricks is a lot more satisfying than it was in the original, as doing them builds up the star gauge and the level design seems intentionally put together for you to be able to chain trick combos for much longer. The combo finisher adds these stars to your boost gauge, giving you a reason to pull off tricks as much as you can. If you don't do a finishing move, the stars you built up will be lost, a punishment for not having the right timing. That's a really good system. The level design in general is a lot better than the first game. Of the 7 zones in Rush Adventure, I never really felt like any of them were annoying in ways stages from the first game were. However, I do think this game still suffers from screen crunch deaths. But on the whole, I still don't think the boost formula is particularly engaging in these games. Tricks are fun, especially when you get the power-up that allows you to do tricks faster, and Sonic's all like... But when boosting through straight lines, it's boring. In the classic games, or even the similar run-forward parts of Advance 2 and 3, I just don't feel bored because speed is something that has to be earned in the Genesis games, as I'm sure everyone's well aware of by this point. In Advance 2, going into the boost mode is easier done with more rings, and this boost doesn't protect you from enemies, so you still need to watch out. Same for Advance 3, where boosting is a reward for maintaining speed without obstruction. To add insult to injury, the game plasters dash pads all over the place, even though you have a button that just propels you forward whenever you need it to. And the spin dash is also in the games too. My point being that in the stages, I think Rush Adventure is more fun than Rush, but it still isn't something I'd want to replay. But hey, they are showing signs of improvement, as I don't think this can't be fun, it just doesn't work for me in these 2 games. One thing this game does have is much improved boss fights. Some of them last as long as battles from the first game, but the player is almost always active in dodging and attacking, which is the main difference between the battles of this game and the first one. This does just kind of lead to you tanking damage and hitting the weak spot, but there are some really good ideas here, like the T-Rex bot launching its head back onto the top screen and crashing down to you on the bottom screen you have to dodge, or sending these spheres back from the ground to the bot's head on the top screen in Machine Labyrinth, or exploring inside this one mech and finding its weak spot from the inside. If Rush Adventure was just the stages and bosses, I'd be very willing to say this is a good game. Minimal frustration, mostly good stages with unique set pieces, and a lot of speed. However, this game introduces a sea of new problems that make it even worse to play through than the original. I mean that literally. In this game, Sonic and Tails are investigating a thunderstorm and get sucked into it and teleported to Blaze's dimension. They land on shore with a new character, Marine the Raccoon, finding them. Easily one of the most hated Sonic characters, although I don't know how many of them really qualify for that role. I mean, there's Chris, Elise, and Marine? Like, who'd even be next? Zavok? Antoine? I don't know, I'm just guessing. Marine's whole thing is that she's a really annoying kid that tags along that nobody actually likes. I can't truly find her insufferable like most people, if only because she doesn't have an annoying voice thanks to this being a DS game. But my real problem is that they really just shoved the story up your anus in this game. I thought Rush 1 had a bad story, but that was because the dialogue was awful. Here, thankfully you can skip the cutscenes with the press of a button because these scenes are really long, even if nothing particularly interesting is going on. But I did like the cutscene where Blaze tells Marine to fuck off. That was funny. This time, Sonic's up against a band of robot pirates. Same year the Tools of Destruction came out as well. The 2 lead bad guys here being Captain Whiskers and Johnny. Yeah, think of the Sonic rivals we've faced over the years. Metal Sonic, Knuckles, Shadow, Blaze, Jet, Silver, Johnny. Now, a boring story that can be skipped is whatever, but what can't be skipped is all the padding that happens in between stages. I don't know if they thought Rush 1 was too short or whatever, because this game goes on for what feels like eons. In Rush 1, you had 2 stories, but this game reduces that to 1 playthrough, which is always something I liked about Advance 3, but that game cut down repeat content via alternate playthroughs and replaced it with more content, giving each zone a 3rd act, having a hub world to mess around with your abilities in, and having minigames to earn extra lives in. It was more content. Here in Rush Adventure, you start as Sonic alone, you unlock Blaze 3 zones in, as this game taking place in the Soul Dimension is actually a plot twist. Sorry, not sorry for the spoiler. The gimmick of this game is that you sail all over creation in order to get to new stages. First you have to plot a course, then you have to sail there in one of 4 minigames. It can be fun for like the first 2 times you do it, but having to play a mobile phone shitter game in between stages is not my idea of a good time. Especially when each new unlockable boat has a longer course chart than the previous one, which means that when it's time to unlock new stages, you have to build that new ship with materials that you unlock for completing stages. With a higher rank, you then get more materials in return. I like incentivizing good performance in stages. Black Knight did that, like I said in the review. But I don't like it when you're stonewalled in progress and have to replay the first 2 zones as Blaze just to unlock the materials needed to go forward. And that's not the only time you have to go back and do old content, which is why I just think this game is really boring and tedious to replay. I flat out screamed no when I was sailing to Pirate Island and accidentally landed on a hidden island and had to go back and start over. Speaking of Pirate Island, it's the last level, and first you go there, but you can't go through the door as you have to go back and find 3 different stone tablets in order to get to the last level. It was a pretty good stage, but by the time I got to it, I just didn't want to play it anymore. But when you finish the final boss fight, there's obviously more to the story where Eggman and Eggman Nega actually are in this game and are after something called the Jeweled Scepter, and I don't care. To even unlock the true final boss of Super Sonic requires you to put up with even more padding. In what might be the worst Chaos Emerald quest in the Sonic franchise, you have to sail all over the ocean and find Johnny at select spots and then race him for a Chaos Emerald. I hate these special stages. The water bike controls are fine when doing the regular minigame, but then in the later special stages, you have to act with such extreme precision, but at the same time you can clearly see Johnny just phasing through rocks, having what feels like a near infinite boost gauge. You have to time your boost carefully or else you just can't win. Special Stage 6 pranking you with 200% boost power increase capsules by the end, but if you didn't reach max capacity before from the do or die ring trails, you just can't catch up in time. It's just so not fun to play. If you are going to do this, do it with a map from Sonic Retro on hand, because if you're sailing aimlessly, you'll be here all day. Also, make sure to get the emeralds in order, because in my playthrough I just stumbled on Special Stage 4, which is a massive difficulty spike from Special Stage 1, which every player must do first. In a first for the series, you can restart the special stages however many times you want to, which carried over into Colors DS and Sonic 4. But with it just being really boring and frustrating, I packed it in at Special Stage 6. It fucking sucks. I've beaten all these stages before on previous playthroughs, but for this one, after 30 minutes of Stage 6, I had enough. But once you have all the Chaos Emeralds, you aren't even done, as the player also has to collect all 7 Soul Emeralds. How do you do that? Well, more repeat content. Honestly, my recommendation is to not even bother completing this game at all. It will make your playthrough a hell of a lot more frustrating if you do. If you like Rush Adventure, more power to you. I mean, I like Advance 3, but damn, I just did not enjoy this game. I meant it when I said I would have been overall positive on this one if it wasn't for its terrible pacing and filler content. It just killed the game for me, burying the improvements it does have over the first game, making it so that I'd rather replay that game over this one, and that's just how I feel about it. The Rush duology are the most defining Sonic games on the DS, but they weren't the only ones. I mean, there was Sonic Chronicles, a full-on RPG. Haven't played that game since I was a kid, but I have decided I'm going to cover it in another video. I figured it was pretty long and could use dedicated time. The DS also received a compilation of retro Sonic titles on the Sonic Classics collection with Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Sonic and Knuckles on it. Even coming with the option for Knuckles in Sonic 2, as well as Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined, which is actually my first time experiencing the combined version. Not nearly the best way to play the games. I mean, the sound is off, the screen space is small, but it was fun and was leagues better than the broken down bullshit that was Sonic Genesis for the Game Boy Advance just 4 years earlier. Kinda sad to look back and see this was one of the last times that Yuji Iwakawa's modern Sonic was used on the box as something meant to be classic Sonic. This and the PS3's Sonic Ultimate Genesis collection were also the last times we ever saw Greg Martin's USA classic Sonic design as well. But thankfully, the mobile port does give you the option for it. I don't know, for me, as a kid, the old Sonic was this, and the newer Sonic was this, and when packaging the old games, they could just be used interchangeably. Sonic Genesis also being one of the last appearances of this USA Sonic. But speaking of Sonic Genesis, I got a couple of comments about why I was including Sonic Colors in the DS in this video. In a video intended to be part of the Dark Age portion of the retrospective, but to that I say, you must have missed the part in the collaborative with Characters in Depth where we included Sonic Genesis. It was a video about Sonic's career on the GBA, so even if it was part of the adventure era of videos, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because Sonic Genesis is better put in that video than any other video, despite firmly being a Dark Age game. So now we fast forward to 2010, the dawn of the evil meta era, trademark Jay's Reviews 2018. The meta era begins with Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 and Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors being a game made by Sonic Team for the Nintendo Wii with the Unleashed Daystage gameplay. In theory. And Dimps being tasked with developing a version of Sonic Colors for the DS. Same basic idea with Dr. Eggman running a space amusement park with captured aliens called Wisps that Sonic must use for power-ups. It's just a completely different game. A decision probably informed by the success of Dimps' Wii version of Sonic Unleashed. I did like it when Dimps got to do their own games that worked alongside the Sonic Team stuff, but this is fine too. I do wonder how much pressure there was for Dimps back in 2010 though. I mean, they had to do Colors on DS and Sonic 4 on a bunch of different platforms. Sounds like they're making for a really terrible game, but luckily, that terrible game was not Sonic Colors in the DS. It was Sonic 4. Going into this game, one I haven't played in a long time, but I do remember thinking positively on it, I hoped it would stay that way because I just described the Rush duo as boring at best. I didn't want this whole video to be dour, and luckily, I think Colors DS is one of Dimps' best games. It's fair to compare this game to the Rush series because it's basically the third installment. This game does not feature Blaze as a playable character, but just by looking at it, I'm sure you can tell that Colors DS plays the same as the previous DS games, just with gimmicks unique to Sonic Colors. The one thing that's gone from the Rush games is the trick system. Muscle memory made it hard to let go of that when starting this game, and in general I think it was always satisfying to pull off, So that being gone is a shame, but in exchange we have new moves. Colors DS was made after Unleashed came out, and now many moves Sonic had there, like the slide and free falling, have made their way into the 2D series. These don't come into play too often, but for the slide in particular, having to react to stuff like low ceiling adds some more of that reaction time challenges I got out of the 3D Boost games. I loved using the stomp move, as this allows you to easily cancel all momentum in midair, giving me a greater feeling of control than I ever had in the Rush games. The level design is also much improved, as I never suffered from obnoxious screen crunch or annoying gimmicks in Colors DS. It was just a really focused 2D platformer. Other changes to the mechanics include the wall jump and a revamped homing attack. The homing attack was in the previous 2 Rush games, it was just done with the R button. Now it's on the face buttons like the console games, as you chain homing attacks together to reach new areas and get granted with hit combos for doing it, like the Wii version of Sonic Unleashed. With this being Sonic Colors, we also have to utilize the new gimmick, the Wisps. Boosting is now tied to Wisp capsules that you can lock onto, unlike the console version, and you can find Wisps as power-ups throughout the stages, like the laser, which fires Sonic in the direction you aim and bounces off of walls, the drill, which burrows underground and underwater, and the rocket that sends you flying into the sky. Those 3 being from the Wii version of Sonic Colors. New to Colors DS are the Burst Wisp, which allows you to fly and make everything around you explode, and it's really satisfying to use. And lastly, there's the Void Wisp, which sucks everything around you up like a black hole. But I have to mention something I can't unsee. These 2 new Wisps were not accounted for in the soundtrack, as the Burst Wisp just uses the theme of the Spike Wisp from the console version, and the Void Wisp just uses a slowed down Asteroid Coaster theme. Could have just used the Frenzy Wisp theme, but whatever. Speaking of the soundtrack, the music in this game is entirely a bit crunched version of the Colors Wii soundtrack. For that reason, I'm probably not likely to listen to it over the Wii music, but it does make for a catchy listen when playing the game. Back to the gameplay, the Wisps add just enough variety for Colors DS to not leave me feeling bored, also adding replay value to stages you already beat by being able to use new Wisp unlocks to find things like red rings. The 2D boost formula had improved a lot by Game 3, the frustration reduced to none, and the Wisps are fun to work with. The boss fights are a lot more engaging than the console version, making more creative use of the Wisp powers. The game isn't too long with its simple 2-act boss fight structure, making it so that yeah, I still think Colors DS is a really good game. What differences it does have from the console version are also interesting. Besides the 2 normal acts of the stages, each zone has side missions you can play, and here at Eggman's Interstellar Amusement Park we actually get to see other Sonic characters at the theme parks. Here we get fun cutscenes between the characters, like Sonic and Blaze referencing the events of Rush Adventure, or how Silver and Blaze appear alongside each other for the first time since Sonic 06, Knuckles having banter with Rouge at Starlight Carnival, Shadow and Omega hanging out at Asteroid Coaster, or how you save Cheese the Chow from being taken by Orbot and Cubot when they were supposed to be looking for Wisps. It's little things like that that flesh out the story of the game and not make this great theme park seem so empty. Story is also a lot less annoying than the Wii version, even if the story's fundamentals aren't that good anyway. In the Wii version, the Chaos Emeralds do not contribute to the plot at all, but in the DS version we've got special stages. Collect 50 rings before an act is finished, then you can play the special stage of each zone. Except Terminal Velocity. Special Stage 7 is located in Gameland. I remember this set of special stages being pretty good, but looking back on it, it's probably because I was able to beat them all. Today, the special stages were the parts of Colors DS I enjoyed the least. The concept is that you have to collect red spheres, cross the finish line, collect blue ones, then yellow. There are spheres of the colors you aren't trying to get in each round, but those don't punish you at all, so these stages have next to no challenge, making them really boring bits of gameplay I'd rather not do. Especially when they unlock a supersonic final boss in a game that's based on a game that got credit for not having one. And that's basically all I've got for you today. Looking back on these DS titles, I think it's interesting that I have the least amount of current fondness for the entry I have the most amount of nostalgia for. Not every game you grow up liking is a game you defend later in life. I mean, I have nostalgia, in some sense of the word, for a vast majority of Sonic games. Nostalgia didn't save the Shadow and Secret Rings videos from turning out the way they did. As for the Rush games, this is basically the outcome I expected. I mean, I don't play these games that often, and the reasons I laid out today are exactly how I remember them from a couple years back. Again, I don't dislike the Rush series, it's just not something I was crazy fond of, but many people are, and I won't and can't take that away from you even if I wanted to, which I don't. Now, as I said, the next video is going to be Sonic Chronicles, so be on the lookout for that. I also hope it doesn't take that long to play, but as a wise rat once said, that remains to be seen. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and also, yes, I totally did not have a Sonic Chronicles box in the last video. I just put a screenshot of the box art on, but I do own it now. So that's worth something, right?